Welcome into another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name is David Austin.
I'm Londa Sherwood-Austin. Welcome back. Thanks for being here.
This is going to be a great show because spring has officially sprung. A couple weeks ago, we talked about there was some kind of spring announcement, but it wasn't the calendar one. It was the seasonal one. And now officially on the calendar, spring has sprung. Here's why that's awesome. People are coming out of the woodwork and looking at houses. I mean, we have been crazy busy for the last week.
Tired. I posted on my social media yesterday, I said, don't ask me what I've done for the last 48 hours because it's been such a whirlwind. I don't know. All I know is I'm grateful.
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel today. I'm a little under the weather, but I'm here and I'm raring to go.
You're focused.
One foot in front of the other. That's what I always like to say.
That's right. On the last program, this big program, The Session with Londa and David, brought to you by the fine folks at Sherwood Austin Homes and our sponsor, Home Coffee. It's on the house. I was a little under the weather during the last show. I said I had a low-grade headache. I do not feel that way this week, and now you're under the weather.
I'm sick is what it is. I'm actually sick. But yeah. And we talked last week about we were in the midst of a very stressful time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you now know what that is. You know, it's hard when your kids are involved with stuff and you don't know what you can share and what you can't share. We kind of have to, we didn't mean to, be so vague about it, but it's not really our story to tell. Anyway, our brand new baby granddaughter was life flighted to Seattle Children's Hospital, and we had her siblings with us for what was supposed to be just a couple of days. It turned into a week. So, and there's no time off.
Right.
I often say, life doesn't stop for your grief, when someone passes or whatever.
Sure.
But life doesn't stop for anything, really. And so there was a lot of juggling and a lot of stress and a lot of, and there's still a lot of unknown. She's home now, but we don't know.
Right.
So don't ask. I don't know. Someone said, is she doing okay? And I was like, I don't really know how to answer that question.
Well enough
honestly.
to leave the hospital, though.
Sure.
And that's a good answer.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That whole being life flighted to Seattle Children's is a scary thing. And there's no two ways about it. It's scary.
Yeah.
So the fact that we were able to spend time with her older brothers and bring them to the house amidst a time of a lot of real estate activity.
A lot of busy work activity. We're still living between two houses, so we literally have not had time to move.
Right.
That's been the craziness. And so
that will happen 1 week from today. As this airs, 1 week from the air date of this program.
Our furniture at least will be moved.
That's exactly right.
We living between two houses, having that kind of family crisis going on and then all the stress and, around that. And then the busyness of work and it's a lot. It's a lot. So, last week we talked about you lean into your routines. So that's, but it only gets you so far.
Well, you say that, and the thing that I really want to talk about on this program is not forgetting to take time for your relationships when you're in a time of crisis. Systems will save you in work. Systems will save you in feeding your family. Systems will save you in a lot of situations, but forgetting to stoke the fire of a relationship could be damaging, and we did not do that during this time of stress. We were intentional about our relationship and taking time to debrief at the end of every day. And with the boys at dinner, we did roses and thorns, which is something that you did with your kids as they were growing up. Mm-hmm. I think making time to be intentional about your relationships when you're under a crisis is helpful. And I kind of want to talk about that in this program because I know a lot of people are living day to day. minute to minute. And often you can forget to water the plants of your relationship.
And this is why that should be part of your routine.
Right.
Right? This is why connection points. This is one thing that I told the kids, the boys, the grand boys that we had. I told their dad. He was kind of asking me, like, kind of keep asking to be informed of what they're doing, know. And I said, well, every day we're looking for a few things to get into each day. One of those is some outside time.
Right.
One of those is connection with each other, which is why we did, if nothing else, roses and thorns at dinner. And if you don't know what that is, it's just the highs and the lows of your day that you share.
Right.
We're looking for some fun each day. We're looking to laugh each day. We're looking to connect emotionally each day, So I kind of ran him through that, and we were texting, and he texted me back and said that made me tear up a little bit, And I think that's one thing that maybe I missed when my kids were growing up, is that I was intentional about a lot of things, but not necessarily a well-rounded kind of intentionality like what I just mentioned. So there were some connection points I think that I missed with my kids in that,
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't have to get into all that. But I think just being that intentional, and it's easier than you think. Like, we often, in past episodes, we've talked about the importance of gratitude and sharing just a few things that you were grateful for that day.
Right.
Maybe at bedtime, or whatever, just building into your routine. This is where habit stacking comes in as well. Like, if you're gonna go to bed, we all go to bed every night. That's a habit, right? Then maybe you stack onto that habit, sharing two things that you're grateful for the day.
I see.
Right?
We did that when we were doing our gratitude journaling.
Yeah.
We did that every single night.
We kind of do that a little bit when we're under it too. We'll lay in bed at night or in the morning and just kind of, and I just saw you take a deep breath. We just kind of deep breath, hold my hand. Let's just talk about, I'm so grateful for you, and I'm so glad I'm here with you, and expressing those kind of things, is really important. So, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but I don't think there is anything that's perfect. It's an imperfect world, really, so there's no perfect way to do anything.
Right. And that's really what we're talking about, right? Being intentional about important, good things is necessary even when you're in crisis. Because if you're not, you'll forget. And before you know it, bad stuff will be piling up on you, because often people, when they're under stress, don't have any mechanism for relief. And you've heard stories of people that, well, they're behind in their car note, their car's getting repossessed. Oh, and they lost their job. Oh, and wait, and this and this and this. You know what I mean? So if you're under a lot of stress, it's really easy to forget what's good. Really easy, which is why being intentional about that is so important.
Yeah. What you focus on matters.
Right.
To your brain,
yes.
To your even we talk about all this, and even we get, I shouldn't speak for you. I get off in the weeds, just in survival mode, which I definitely did this last week, which, by the way, school drop-off and pickup is trash.
I loved the drop-off part of it. I did. I loved it. I got there early.
I'm just talking about, like, the friggin' interruption to the flow of your day.
Sure.
Ugh. Anyway.
For me.
As a side note, it was just one more, stressor. And it wasn't that, it wasn't that it was stressful. It was just, I don't know, one thing on top of another. And that pretty soon, you just feel buried. I had a couple people reach out to me, and thank you, by the way, and, ask if I was doing okay. I said, dude, I'm keeping my head above water, just barely.
Sure.
And it wasn't any one thing. It was just being out of my routine and being, and in the background, this like sense of worry and dread kind of, was running, if that makes sense.
Well, it does. And that's why we talked about just the other day, you need to look for the positives because you'll find them. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't have a sense of dread during that time. I just looked for the fun that was there, but the stress was definitely there the whole time, and you can pick up on my physical cues when I'm under stress. Like
I pick up on all your cues.
Like my eye starts to get weird, right? You kept on top of that and started saying, hey, put your medicine in your eye so it doesn't blow up. And it didn't blow up. So,
and I start to, under stress, I'm kind of manage everything and everyone anyway, but under stress, I start micromanaging everything. Look, my eyes twitching. And I start to like really micromanage. It's important to know when you're under a lot of stress what your triggers are and what your tendencies are, so that you can kind of rein them in a little bit, right? Because it doesn't help.
Right.
My ability to manage things, very helpful. My stress response of micromanaging everyone and everything, not helpful.
Yeah, and I don't want to manage anything at all ever for any reason except for my loans.
And under stress, you manage less.
Right.
So I get more intense, you get more hands off. And that can be an interesting cycle as well, right?
Interesting, yes.
I'm a noticer. I notice everything.
Yeah, that's good.
And you've got to let some things go. Like, there were some meetings that I had to skip. I had to let some stuff. You have to. Or you're gonna.
You haven't had time for Rotary in the last 2 weeks at all because of what's been going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you have to just prioritize and decide what's most important. Along with all of this, I've been covering another realtor's business, and so, which was not going to be any kind of problem at all. But of course, we didn't know we were going to have all this family stuff happening too. So again, it wasn't in and of itself not a hard thing, but added on to everything else.
Sure. Definitely
was a factor in the stress level. And I don't manage stress that great anyway.
Okay.
And I'm just not super skilled at it. I do what I can. But like I said, it's like my hard drive, my onboard hard drive has got that worry, dread, fear program running in the background the whole time.
Oof.
Underneath all the stuff that's going on. And so,
which sounds awful.
Well, it is. Welcome. And I work to reprogram it all the time. And
how do you do that? How do you work to reprogram that? That's a good road to go down.
Yeah. Noticing, when you notice that you're getting into negative, when you're thinking about it consciously, fear, worry, dread, right? Noticing it and kind of, the best way I describe it is it's like your thoughts are going down this, I picture a meadow in my brain and it's got pathways in the meadow, right? And I notice my thoughts going down this pathway in the meadow. And I know that somewhere in there is like a wildcat that's going to attack me, right? And if I let that keep going, there's disaster is down that path. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. So I try to notice it, and then I grab that thought and kind of drag it back to home base and try to push it down a different path of what could go right. what is going right, what's happening that is going well, what is good.
Right.
Sometimes it's just a matter of what is the reality that I know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go down that path of worry, fear, dread, whatever, a lot of that is based on these untrue stories that I tell myself, right? So
you say that a lot.
I woke up
like you're telling yourself a story. You say that phrase a lot.
Everyone tells themselves story. It's psychology. Humans, we tell ourselves stories because the brain wants to complete the loop of the thought to make it make sense.
I gotcha.
So we tell stories to make the things that are happening around us make sense. The brain has to complete the loop. And so we do tell ourselves stories. So this is why I often talk about, listen, if I'm going to gaslight or brainwash myself, it might as well be to the positive, not to the negative.
Sure.
Right? So I'm going to tell stories. There was a lot of times I woke up over this last week, I've woke up in the middle of the night just in a dead panic thinking, that Lucy had passed, right?
Sure.
Well, I'm asleep. I can't, that's my non-conscious brain. I can't help that. I can't help that happened.
Right.
But then now I'm awake and I've got that thought and it's going down a path, right? That's not productive or helpful. It's just disastrous.
And we've talked about that here. Worry has no positive health benefits. None.
Sure. So then I have to figure out how to get it to go down a positive path.
Okay.
And I can't use history.
Right.
Because she has two older siblings who passed away from similar symptoms.
Right.
I can't use history. Well, but she has two older siblings who haven't. They're perfectly healthy, but they never had the seizures and the breathing problems and all that stuff, right? So then I have to just kind of like, okay, now what am I going to do with this?
Right.
And then this is what I do. I don't know if it's helpful or not. It hasn't really been helpful. I haven't slept well, but I'll think about a work situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just try to figure that out, or I'll try to rehearse it. Like if I have an upcoming appointment the next day, I'll just like rehearse it in my brain, how that's going to go. It's like I'm chair flying.
Sure. You explained that to some customers this weekend.
Yeah, actually, I think that might be helpful to expand on that a little bit. So, because it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. If you've heard of athletes visualizing, wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a visualization technique that pilots use called chair flying. And so what they do is they sit in the chair and they close their eyes and in their brain put themselves in the cockpit of the plane, and they fly the whole mission from start to finish in their brain.
Right.
And you may have seen, if you're on TikTok or Instagram Reels or something, you may have seen videos of this chair flying because they're like working the controls with their hands. You can see them just, and it's a tool that's used in fighter pilots, but it also athletes, anyone who is, elite at what they do, right? So I've used visualization for my work. If I've got an appointment, if I visualize that, take the time to sit and think through it. Okay, what's this going to look like? We're going to do this, and then we're going to do it. I typically, that appointment goes smoothly.
Right.
If I don't, I often run into obstacles. So it's super helpful. So in the middle of the night, I'll, maybe do that because I feel like focusing on work is something I feel more in control of, right?
Sure.
Honestly, if I started focusing on like our granddaughter in the hospital, and I'd be like, okay, try to make my brain focus on the positive of her getting better and being released and passing all her tests, and being released and coming home and whatever. It doesn't work. I got to just think about something else, because the others, I'm very visual in my head. I've a big imagination, and my brain is full of pictures and sounds and lights and graphics and words, and it's very busy up here. And so it's not easy to, it's like a 3-ring circus up there, So grabbing that stuff and making it go, telling my brain what we're going to think about is not an easy task, but necessary, I think, for my survival.
Sure. And, there are a million different motivational speakers that talk about this and programming your brain and telling yourself how to think and feel. And, sometimes saying it out loud, Tony Robbins, slap your chest and change your state. Yeah. That kind of thing is what you're talking about. And I think it's very interesting because when I heard that the very first time, when I was at Tony Robbins Live, and he was talking about that and then talking about saying things positive out loud about yourself, I thought, well, this is ridiculous. Doesn't everybody already do that? Apparently not.
Most people don't.
Yeah. It's surprising to me.
Mel Robbins, for whatever you think about her, there's a little controversy around her stuff.
What's the controversy?
The last year or so, but
letdown.
And I know that, but that aside, one of her books, I don't remember which one. I don't even know if she ended up putting it in a book or if it was just a thing that she did. But she talked about high-fiving yourself in the mirror and what that does to you psychologically.
Okay.
And it's a very interesting concept. It's the same kind of thing. It changed your state and all that kind of thing. So, but I'm sick this week because of all the stress. So does it work? Does it not? Well, yeah. I mean,
I think it does. I'm
doing the best I can. That's what I have to say.
People often say I'm super joyful and a little goofy. And a couple times last week, I thought, oof, it's hard to be happy right now. You know what I mean?
Well, and yeah, I do know what you mean. And it's not really always about being happy, but it's about, for me, maintaining my peaceful state.
Like a Shaolin master, maintaining your peaceful state.
I don't have much capacity at all for stuff that disrupts my peaceful state of mind. Family emergency, I'm going to say yes every time.
Right, because that's what you do.
That's what you do. But I find myself more and more people that are disruptive to my peace, I just don't spend time with them.
Well, I think that's good advice.
Situations that are disruptive to kind of my peaceful state, I just stay away. And it's not to say that I don't challenge myself, because I do. I even said to you last week, I said, I had to go to a networking event as a representative for this realtor that I'm covering for. And I was nervous. I had to introduce myself and talk a little bit, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but I was so nervous. And I thought, oh, okay, I've gotten my world's gotten a little too small. I need to open it up a little and get out there a little bit more, because that's not normal for me to be nervous about that kind of a thing at all. So I think what I'm talking about is a whole lot of self-awareness.
Okay.
And if you're not a person who is very self-aware, you're doing a disservice to the people in your life. I think you've got to be taking inventory of yourself pretty often.
And I regularly don't, and I'm not saying anything against what you're saying. I've become a lot more interested in that since we've been together. I often say I don't have any interest at all in self-examination. I often say that, and always have, because I don't think there's very much interesting going on inside of me by myself. I'd far prefer to talk to other people about themselves than to think about me, right? But I've become more interested in that because of the conversations we've had, and I've seen some actual growth that I didn't know was necessary because of it. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and I appreciate that a lot, because I do think self-awareness is vital.
Introspection.
Yeah.
That's what I'm not interested in very much. But
it's vital to healthy relationships, because just imagine this. Imagine if I'm not aware of my triggers or not aware of how I respond under intense stress. And instead of being aware of it and thinking about it and working on my responses to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's awareness. That's introspective kind of thought. Imagine if I'm not paying attention to that at all, and then I get under a tremendous amount of stress and I snap at you and I'm unkind to you in some kind of way because I'm under a bunch of stress, but I'm not being aware of it. I'm not being conscious of it to not do that, right? I have to be self-aware to not snap at you when I'm under more stress than usual.
I see.
Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, this is a really basic kind of example, but I don't want to snap at you because, you know, you're my ally, you're my friend and my partner and my ally in this world. But it's hard to not, when you're feeling all that stress of life, to not like be really short with people and have a much lower tolerance than you typically would when everything's going right and going well and everything's easy breezy beautiful. You know what I mean? And so being aware of that keeps me from unintentionally hurting the people around me.
Sure.
It's that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that. But again, this is why like I did cut some things out over these last couple of weeks because, you know, I'm you can only do so much.
Sure.
Right. I've got to preserve my sanity to some degree. And if I'm under this is another thing I think about. If I'm under this much stress, how much stress like are our kids who are like on the front line dealing with the parents who are sitting in the hospital room?
A tremendous amount of stress.
You know, geez.
And if we were able to relieve any of it by taking the boys for the week, thank you.
Yeah.
And yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And also something that I kept thinking about all week and focusing on is what a rare opportunity, because we live in the same town as them. We don't usually have them for a week. And what a rare opportunity to have them day and night for a week and really be able to be engaged with them and observe and learn about them and do stuff with them. I learned a lot. They're 13 and 11. They're very interesting people, you know, and I learned a lot about them in this week. You know, you took one of them disc golfing
a few times, yeah.
A few times, then he went with his uncle one time, and big shout out to James and Sierra because they took the boys for us one day while we were out showing properties for like 6 hours. It was crazy. But yeah, James took him out to play disc golf that day too. And that was fun. You know, even hearing him later saying, yeah, I just using a lot of the terminology that you guys use. And he was like explaining to his little brother about it and everything. And you could tell he kind of felt cool. Like he knows the lingo and everything. And I mean, he took it a little far because he said one of the comments I heard in the back seat of my car was, well, that's why you're not any good at it, you know? And I was like, okay.
Let's be nice. Let's be nice.
Kindness is important. And he's like, okay, well, I'm just saying.
Kindness is a core principle of this team.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So just focusing on that stuff too. You know, and God dang, I mean, it's been a long time since I've had young kids around and had to do the school pickup and getting meals on the table every night. And we don't eat. I never realized that we don't eat, you and I, like we don't eat like a family eats, right? Like we don't, like if we're busy and we don't get dinner until 8:30 p.m., okay. Oh, well, who cares?
Right.
So I'll make dinner at 8:30.
And we go to the store and get fresh ingredients. Yeah. We live like people in Paris. We're like French. And we shop for what we're going to eat.
I
that
mean,
moment.
one night I was like, okay, guys, we're going to go. We've got to show a couple properties tonight. And I was like, oh, shoot, you have to eat dinner.
Right.
You kids have to eat dinner. Let me figure that out real quick, that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. And I think that the biggest stressor is that we don't have one complete house that we're living in.
Well, that's a big stressor for sure. Yeah. We have an office that's almost fully operational. We have a studio that's almost fully operational. And that's it.
Yeah, the kitchen's split. It's like there's nowhere there was nowhere really for the four of us to kind of sit down together and kind of just chill,
right?
Except the dinner table,
right? And
that's
interesting. Good. And it's important to remember, and that's what this episode's about, to take time to recognize the positives and water your relationship, even if you're under stress. Because if you don't do that, things are going to go haywire. And luckily, we were very intentional about that over the last 9 days. And thankfully, we have continued to do that. The grass grows green where you water it, right?
Yeah.
So
they say.
That's something to think about as we wrap up this show. Is there anything else you want to add? We have about 45 seconds left in the big program.
I don't know. I mean, if you're a regular listener to this show and you interact with us on the regular, thank you for your kindness and your grace right now.
Yeah. And if you're one of our customers in process, we're very happy to have you on the team, and we're going to make sure everything works. We've been very busy, and we always have time for you.
For sure.
For Londa, Joanne, Sherwood Austin, the prettiest girl in the world, I'm David Austin, and this has been another edition of The Session with Londa and David. We'll see you again next week.